You know that feeling when you empty your coat pocket and find a fiver? Not a tenner, nothing exciting, just a slightly crumpled fiver, a receipt for something you definitely didn't need, and about 40 pence in copper. And your first thought is, oh, that's nice. And your second thought is, this won't even cover a round. Right, so, that fiver. What if you'd been putting a fiver away every single week for the last 10 years? Not in anything clever, not in some app a 22-year-old on the internet told you about, just in a drawer, a tin, somewhere it couldn't escape. That's 260 quid a year. Over 10 years, that's £2,600 sitting there, doing nothing, just waiting, from a fiver a week. From the thing you spend without noticing on a meal deal and a coffee on a Tuesday. That number is uncomfortable in the specific way that only missed opportunities can be. And this is not a video about money. Well, it is, a bit. But mostly it isn't. Because the same maths applies to almost everything that actually matters in a life. And nobody really tells you that when you're young. They just let you find out the hard way. At around 43, standing in a coat that's slightly too tight, wondering what happened. So, small things. Let's talk about small things. The thing about small things, small consistent things, is that they look genuinely unimpressive while they're happening. That is the whole problem. There is no moment when you are doing a small thing and thinking, yes, this is it. This is the one that changes everything. You're just doing the small thing, probably a bit bored, probably wondering if there's anything good on later. I started walking. Not hiking. I'm not a man who hikes. I did not buy boots. I did not download an app. I just started walking for 20 minutes after dinner a few nights a week. Around the block, sometimes down to the canal and back, listening to something or nothing. And for the first 2 months, absolutely nothing happened. I looked the same. I felt more or less the same. My trousers did not become looser in some triumphant montage moment. I was just a man, walking around his neighbourhood, alone, in the dark, slightly out of breath. But then, and this took longer than anyone wants to admit, I started sleeping better. Not dramatically, not in a way you could make a video about, just, I was falling asleep faster and waking up slightly less like something that had been left out in the rain. My mood, which had been sitting somewhere around lukewarm for a while, edged up a little. And somewhere around the 6-month mark, I realised the small hill near our house that used to make me quietly furious had stopped bothering me at all. That's compounding, but it's invisible while it's working, which is why most people quit before it kicks in. And I quit. More than once. I'd go 3 weeks, then skip a week, then start again. Then something would happen and I'd be back on the sofa for a fortnight. Every time I restarted, I felt like I was back at zero. I probably wasn't. The body remembers more than you think. But it felt that way. And that feeling is the enemy of all of this. Because if it feels like nothing is happening, and you can't see the progress, and the whole thing just feels like trudging around in the October drizzle for no visible reason, it is incredibly easy to stop. This is the bit nobody warns you about. The early phase is genuinely boring and apparently pointless, and the gap between starting something and it visibly mattering is long enough that you can convince yourself it isn't working, when actually it's just not finished yet. Think about a conversation, a marriage, any long relationship really. The health of it is not built in the big moments, the anniversaries, the grand gestures, the time you actually remembered to book the restaurant. It's built in the Tuesday evenings, the cup of tea made without being asked, the putting down the phone when someone's talking, the sitting together and not needing to say anything. My wife and I say this as someone who has been at various points an absolute liability to live with, we're in a decent place now. Not because anything dramatic happened, because we kept turning back towards each other, quietly, repeatedly, over a lot of years. Which sounds almost offensively simple, and it is. And it's also genuinely hard, because life keeps pointing you in other directions, and it's easy to just drift. Drift. That's the word I keep coming back to, because here's the other side of all this, and it's less pleasant. Small bad things also add up. They compound just as reliably as the good ones. Maybe more reliably. Because the bad ones don't require any effort. They just happen while you're not paying attention. I am thinking specifically of the years I spent in my 30s, eating whatever was convenient, sleeping badly, not really exercising, and sitting at a desk for 9 or 10 hours a day. None of those days felt catastrophic. I wasn't unwell. I wasn't falling apart. I was just not doing the small good things. And the small bad things were happening in their place, quietly, compounding away in the background, like a process I hadn't authorized. And then one day, I was standing at the top of the stairs after carrying 2 boxes up from the garage, and I needed a minute. I was 41, and I needed a minute. At the top of my own stairs. That's what years of small, bad choices look like. Not a dramatic collapse, just a Tuesday afternoon, mildly out of breath, holding 2 boxes thinking, how has it come to this? The good news, and I mean this, there is actual good news, is that the same mechanism works in reverse. Small good things, started whenever you start them, begin compounding immediately. Not visibly, not in a way that's going to impress anyone at first, but immediately. The walk you take tonight means something. The vegetable you eat instead of the other thing means something. The conversation you choose to actually be present for, that one goes in the account. You just can't see the balance yet. I think about money, specifically the money I did not put aside in my 20s. I was not irresponsible exactly. I just never quite got round to it. There was always a reason, a thing that needed paying for, a reason why this month wasn't the right month. I was going to start properly soon. I was going to do it seriously, in a grown-up, organised way, once things settled down. Things do not, it turns out, settle down. They just change shape. If I had put away 30 quid a month from 22, which I absolutely had, I would have something much more useful than I do now, sitting behind me in an account, doing the quiet, undramatic work of compounding interest. Instead, I have the memory of a holiday I vaguely enjoyed, and some jeans I definitely didn't need. The lesson there is not complicated. Start earlier than feels necessary, with less than feels significant, more regularly than feels worth it. That's it. That's genuinely the whole thing. The confidence piece is the one that surprises people, I think, because you don't associate confidence with repetition. You think confidence is something you either have or you don't. You think some people just walk into rooms easily and some people do not. But confidence, actual durable confidence, is mostly just accumulated evidence. Evidence that you have done hard things before, that you kept a commitment to yourself, that you said you'd do something and then you did it, over and over, long enough that your own brain started to believe you. I can track my own confidence to the small things I kept doing when I didn't want to. Not the big moments, the small ones. The getting up when I wanted to stay in bed. The difficult call I made instead of avoiding it for another week. The apology I didn't wait until I was ready to give. Each of those is tiny, completely tiny. But they are the bricks of something. And that something is the quiet, private sense that you are actually a person who does what they say they'll do. Which, if I'm honest, is the version of myself I most want my boys to see. Not the version who had a plan. The version who showed up repeatedly in the small ways when nobody was watching and nothing was happening yet. Because that's the invisible part of it. The showing up when it looks like nothing is happening. When the numbers aren't moving and the scale isn't shifting and the account isn't growing and you're just doing the thing again in the rain for no visible reward. That period is not the waiting room. That period is the work. And almost nobody stays in it long enough to find out what it was building. I want to give that understanding to my boys early. Not as a lecture, God no. The last thing any teenager wants is their dad standing in the kitchen talking about compound interest with the level of feeling I'm currently bringing to it. I want to show them. I want the way I live to be the thing that teaches them. The walk I go on, even when I don't want to. The money I move quietly into a savings account every month without making a ceremony of it. The conversations I choose to stay present for instead of drifting towards my phone. Not because anyone is watching, because the small things are always adding up, in one direction or the other. And you only really see which direction you've been going once enough time has passed. By which point, well, some of it you can still fix. Some of it you can't. And the difference between those two categories is exactly the age you are right now. So, the fiver. Maybe put the fiver away.